Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Happy Friday and happy first day of the fourth quarter. I can't believe we're already here. Today we have quite a few stories to go through. We've got a new management meeting from Volkswagen that's been reported on by Business Insider. Some really interesting takeaways from that. We've got clarification from Elon on the FSD Beta rollout, updates on how Q3 sales have come in for other automakers as we obviously wait for Tesla's delivery report. We've got maybe a little bit of news on the Model X finally, an update on the range for the Model Y in China, and a couple of other things as well. So first up, Tesla stock on the day ended up being a pretty quiet day. Tesla down 0.03% today to $775.22. That did trail the NASDAQ, which had a pretty solid day, up 0.8%. But Tesla kind of seemed locked in on that $775 price as we head into the delivery report. Speaking of, I do expect that to come tomorrow, as we have talked about. My hunch is that it'll be sometime around 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. Not a ton of confidence in that, but either way, I don't have any plans tomorrow morning, so I was thinking of just doing a live stream, and while we all kind of wait for it, maybe we can just have some Q&A, some conversation for those of us degenerative enough to be sitting there waiting for these numbers to come out on a Saturday morning. Or I suppose afternoon. For those over in Europe, that would be 1:30 p.m. UTC. So I'll probably start the live stream sometime around 9 a.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. UTC. And worst case, we don't get the numbers, and I guess we'll just hang out and chat for a little bit. All right, so first up here, we've got a report from Business Insider over in Germany about a management meeting from Volkswagen led by Herbert Diess, obviously Volkswagen Group CEO, and then VW brand CEO, Ralf Brandstatter as well. And this meeting seems very reminiscent of a meeting that we had talked about last year with Volkswagen and compared and contrasted versus Elon's management style and his general dislike of meetings. So anyway, last year, Volkswagen had this meeting with management basically saying, okay, how do we catch up with Tesla? Here, they are being reported to have had a meeting last Thursday where these two CEOs called together all 120 top managers together in Wolfsburg, where they have their headquarters and main factory. So this was last Thursday at 5 p.m. according to Business Insider, both CEOs standing on stage, and they describe it in translation by saying, quote, "It's serious. The brand, the group, is coming under increasing pressure on the world market. Not only in electrification and digitization, the largest manufacturer in the world is following competitors, VW is also losing touch with productivity. According to Diess's haunting words, if everything stays the same, VW is no longer competitive." End quote. So this one advantage that legacy automakers were supposed to have, which was being able to actually produce things, Volkswagen here, the largest manufacturer in the world, has their group CEO and their brand CEO standing on stage saying that they are behind in production. Now, for those that follow Tesla as closely as we do on this channel, perhaps that isn't surprising, but to anybody else, this should be a huge eye-opener. Business Insider continues on, quote, "Brand boss Brandstatter, who is not said to have the very best relationship with the CEO, agrees with Diess in the crisis round. It is urgently necessary that the course be set anew in Wolfsburg, says Brandstatter. The future competition with Tesla's new Gigafactory will be brutal. The electric car pioneer would set new standards in car production. Thus, a Tesla 3 is built in 10 hours, more than 3 times as fast as a VW ID3 in Zwickau. Tesla is thus in a different dimension in terms of productivity and profitability." End quote. I think VW is really starting to get a sense of the walls closing in. I mean, they're trying to sell these ID vehicles in China, and from reports so far, it seems like that's been a tough proposition. They obviously see the success of Tesla, they see the success of China domestic automakers. And to me, the long and short of what they're saying here is that they're just fundamentally uncompetitive. So what Diess and Brandstatter here are advocating for, according to Business Insider, is, quote, "A radical conversion in the main plant in Wolfsburg, an operation at the heart of Volkswagen. According to this, old buildings are to be demolished, new production halls are to be built to make processes more efficient." End quote. They then write, quote, "The great hope for the Wolfsburg location is the Trinity project, an electric car that is to be launched in 2026. End quote. So it's definitely possible that this is Volkswagen just saying these things to try to increase urgency and accelerate the pace of change, exert some internal influence, but there has to be some fundamental basis for the comments that they're saying, and from what they're saying, it kind of just sounds like they're at the drawing board, still trying to figure out exactly what it is that they need to do to be competitive. And this is Volkswagen that has had Diess, who actually seems to understand what is happening here, pushing them in the correct direction for a long time now. We don't know how effective that push has been, but he clearly has got the direction right. So if Volkswagen is saying things like this, think about other automakers. They're not even at this stage of acknowledgement yet. I mean, maybe they are in private, but some of them certainly just seem to be sitting there, kind of like that dog meme where he's sitting in this burning down house saying this is fine. Psst, Toyota. So anyway, this year has been an interesting year, but I think when Texas and Berlin open up, things are just about to get a whole lot more interesting. And then shortly after that, the Cybertruck, true to its form, is just going to barrel in and destroy whatever is in its path. All right, moving on, we've got a quick update from Elon on when the FSD Beta rollout is going to begin. This matches my assumption that we had discussed previously, but Elon did confirm on Twitter that they have pushed the beta rollout a week to align with the release of 10.2. So 10.2 is supposed to come next Friday, October 8th, and that's when they should start adding people, about 1,000 per day, based on Elon's previous tweets, but obviously subject to change in terms of how that rollout exactly gets handled. Next year, we might have an update on the status of the refresh Model X. Of course, we're all still waiting for production to really begin there, or deliveries to begin there. Looks like production may have started, at least to some extent. There is a new drone flyover video of Fremont from September 29th that shows at least 3 vehicles here that are definitely Model X's. You can see the outline of the Falcon Wing doors on the roof, the extended windshield, and then the door handles, which are black, signaling that they're refreshed, are centrally located near the B pillar. So definitely look like Model X's, and then they do have some protective coverings wrapped up a little bit, presumably for shipping. A little bit later on in the video, then, we come across a row of vehicles that a little bit farther away, harder to tell, but they look like they're either Model S or Model X based on the front of the car having the little mustache, or whatever you want to call that. And they definitely look to be a little bit bulkier than Model S's, so I think this is a group of Model X's as well. So after many months, we may finally be getting some action there in terms of Model X production. Certainly I expect Tesla to start and ramp that up in Q4, but hopefully this can be an indicator that that'll happen earlier rather than later. Next, just another quick update. We've got our latest Tesla energy project. Australia's GenX Power has announced that they have agreed to a 100 megawatt hour Megapack order with Tesla. They don't expect it to begin operations until the first half of 2023, but more exciting than that is that they do plan to deploy more similar projects in the future. Moving on here, we've just got a small handful, I guess we'll call it, of things that I want to talk about for Tesla in China. First up, we saw an update from Moneyball on Twitter that Tesla has actually increased the range on the long range and performance Model Y in the China design studio. So if you load the page up now, you can see the long range coming in at 640 kilometers and the performance coming in at 566 kilometers range. Now, unfortunately, on the Wayback Machine, we have to go all the way back to July, so I'm not exactly sure what it was most recently, but the long-range Model Y previously was listed at 594 kilometers, and the performance at 480 kilometers. Moneyball's tweet said the performance was previously at 540 kilometers, so maybe that's more recent for the performance, not sure. But the current numbers are definitely higher than they were. So I'm not exactly sure what is happening here. I think Moneyball's tweet also said that the battery size listed there is 78.4 kilowatt hours, which makes me think not a bigger battery, so okay, maybe it's just more efficient then, maybe they've switched over to more cast parts. I could be wrong on this, but I think the answer is unfortunately not as exciting. If you look at the difference between the Wayback Machine page and the current page, it does specifically now say on the current page NEDC. Before, it did not. So NEDC is the test cycle that generally is the most forgiving on range estimates. Then you've got WLTP, and then what Tesla shows here in the United States, the EPA. So the reason I kind of noticed specifically that it says NEDC now is because previously the listed ranges, they didn't convert over from what Tesla lists as the EPA range here in the US, as you would expect them to. Obviously each vehicle is different, but sort of a rule of thumb is to divide NEDC by 1.43 to get EPA. If you would have done that with the Model Y's old estimated range in the design studio, that 594 kilometers for the long range version, it would have suggested an EPA range of 257 miles versus the actual 326 mile EPA range estimate. So basically ever since the beginning of Tesla opening up the design studio, I've felt like they've been understating their ranges in China, and I've never been clear on if they were just reporting the WLTP ranges or what's been going on there. But now that I see the difference between these two pages and I see NEDC currently pop up on the new page, I'm thinking that maybe that's the only change here, and maybe Tesla is finally updating that to be more in line with what competitors are saying their ranges are, even though obviously NEDC is kind of overstating the range. So I definitely don't know for sure, that's just a guess, but if that is the case, just a long way of saying that there may not be any actual changes to the vehicles here. All right, the next thing that I wanted to talk about with China, and this is something that I meant to talk about in the live stream yesterday, was just to take a look at how, if correct, the 52,000 domestic sales rumor for Tesla in China in September would make Q3 look specifically for domestic China sales versus past quarters. So if it's right, that would put Q3 at around 73,500 domestic sales in China for the quarter, which would be a new record. That would be up 19% from Q2 and 6% from Q1. So with all the concern about Tesla in China this year, if these numbers are right, it'd be a nice feather in the cap for Tesla to pull off their best quarter ever domestically. Obviously, releasing the standard range Model Y would be a big part of that, but still. Then the other just super quick point that I meant to make yesterday is that the 52,000 number and my 49,000 production guess would mean a slight reduction in inventory. But as we talked about previously, Tesla has quite a lot of Model Y inventory built up. And in the final months of Q1 and Q2, so March and June, Tesla's sales did outpace production, so inventory drained down at the end of those quarters. So my forecast has that as a similar outcome. So just wanted to provide that context for yesterday's episode. All right, last big topic as we wait for Tesla's Q3 delivery report. We do have US delivery reports from a number of different automakers here, not worldwide, US. And Q3 shaping up to be quite rough for most automakers. So first up, we've got GM here. They reported their US sales down 33% for the quarter. Stellantis then reporting that Fiat Chrysler's US sales were down 19% for Q3. Honda up next, US sales down 11%. And then Nissan rounding this out at down 10%. So I think some other automakers may have reported a four-door report on Monday, but overall, obviously continued to be a very tough quarter. Automakers all obviously talking about chip shortages as well. The New York Times had an article about this that captured the impact there well, saying, quote, "At the end of September, GM had 128,757 vehicles in dealer inventories, down from 211,974 at the end of June and more than 334,000 at the end of the first quarter. In years past, the figure was often about 800,000, end quote. So inventory down about 84% from what would have been previously normal levels. I know I've shared my thoughts on this, but there's just no way that these businesses would plan to have inventory that low. And remember, the inventory that does remain, that's the stuff that people haven't bought yet, the stuff that nobody wants. So inventory on actual good product is going to be down even further. It should be very clear at this point that believing that automakers are doing this intentionally because of the impact of EVs on the market somehow is just simply incorrect. Now, that's not saying that EVs aren't having an impact. Obviously they are, that's extremely clear, but attributing these huge drops in production, huge drops in inventory primarily to electric vehicles is just nonsense in my opinion. All right, last quick story here, just kind of a fun way to end the Friday. I think you all know that I don't care about individual countries' individual month sales. There are so many different factors that make those statistics not all that important, but it is kind of fun. So in Norway in September, 77.5% of new vehicles sold were EVs. And on top of that, the Model Y was the most popular vehicle in the entire country. Again, just 1 month. Quarterly batching affects that a lot. And obviously it's the launch of the vehicle, but still fun to see. Obviously Tesla doing well in Norway. Obviously EVs also doing very well in Norway. So a good way to wrap it up as we wait for Tesla's Q3 delivery and production report expected tomorrow. Again, I'm probably doing that live stream sometime around 1 p.m. UTC, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And hopefully we'll get the numbers there. Otherwise, we'll just hang out for a bit. But as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And see you hopefully tomorrow for the Saturday, October 2nd episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.